and all is still go as we monitor our status for it. Good luck and Godspeed.
Have you ever had a premonition, a feeling that something dreadful was about to happen?
No, Mother, I have not been drinking.
Do you happen to have a pair of birds that are just friendly?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I have to go back into the past once more, just once more.
This is HitchPod. It's Kat Jones and Dan Libke, and we're in a podcast counting down the 20 best movies of the wonderful 20th century director Alfred Hitchcock. And in this particular episode, we're comparing the 20th best Hitchcock movie. Too many 20s in this intro. The 20th best Hitchcock, Frenzy, with the movie that the Oscars thought was the best one from that same year, which was The Godfather.
Yes, it is, yes. So before we get into that comparison, I think the 19th best Hitchcock movie will be our next episode. And we'll reveal what that movie is at the end of the episode. But because we like cryptic crosswords, we thought we'd put a little teaser out here with a cryptic style clue to the 19th best movie, and you can see if you can work it out as you listen to this episode.
And if you don't like The Godfather, you can spend the entire episode as we're talking trying to work out this cryptic answer.
Yes. So the clue is an early Hitchcock film that's 3 gold pieces.
And the crossword style clue is that it's 2 words. First word is 3 letters, second word is 6 letters.
Yep. An early Hitchcock film, that's 3 gold pieces. Work on that and we'll get into the details of The Godfather, which was, of course, from 1972. And it has an IMDb rating of 9.2 out of 10, which is the second best ranking on IMDb. Do you know what the number 1 movie is?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, what is it?
It is The Shawshank Redemption.
It is indeed.
And I think I only know that because we did that movie. And I think we talked about that, didn't we, earlier in season 1 of HitchPod.
Yes, very possibly, yes. It has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 97%, but I did manage to find one negative review from the time. So
Did I write it?
No, you didn't. This is from Stanley Kaufman of the New Republic. So he wrote, Al Pacino as Brando's heir rattles around in a part too demanding for him. James Caan is okay as his older brother. Francis Ford Coppola, the director and co-adapter, has saved all his limited ingenuity for the shootings and stranglings, which are among the most vicious I can remember on film.
Wow.
There you go. But despite that review, it did win Best Picture at the Oscars, Best Actor for Marlon Brando, who actually declined the award, and Best Adapted Screenplay, and you can get the movie everywhere.
It made lots of money too, right?
Made
People
lots
loved
of money. It
People
was
loved it.
the biggest box office of that year, as well as critically and popularly acclaimed.
And you can get it everywhere if you want to watch it now. I'm sure it's playing somewhere. If you just flick on your TV, it will be playing on one of those channels.
Almost certainly, yes. So it does star Marlon Brando as Don Vito Corleone, Al Pacino as Michael Corleone, James Caan as Sonny Corleone, and Diane Keaton as Kay Adams, who presumably becomes Kay Corleone at some point.
Yeah.
The synopsis is the aging patriarch of an organised crime dynasty in post-war New York City transfers control of his clandestine empire to his reluctant youngest son. And it's written by Mario Puzo, who wrote the book as well as the screenplay, and Francis Ford Coppola, who is the director. And he's also perhaps best known as Nicolas Cage's uncle, is Francis Ford Coppola. Yes. He's also famous for Apocalypse Now, The Conversation, and the other Godfather movies. And
how many were there? How many Godfather movies? Just
3. Just
okay.
the 3. And it is a crime/drama with the tagline, it's an offer you can't refuse. There you go. All right, so we're going to zip through the plot of this one, just in case you haven't seen it. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, probably turn off now. Go watch The Godfather on
if you
one of
don't
those
want to
channels.
be spoiled, basically you can't watch any pop culture anything
Yes.
for the last 20, 30 years because you would have already been spoiled about this movie, surely.
Definitely, yes. Anyway, nevertheless, we do start in 1945 at the wedding of Connie, who's played by Talia Shire, who you may recall as Adrian from Rocky. Rocky's girlfriend, and she is also Francis Ford Coppola's sister.
Does she have any agency in any film she acts
I don't
in?
think so. She's the daughter in this one of the mafia crime boss, although they do never say mafia in the film, Don Vito Corleone, who is played by Marlon Brando. So while Connie is getting married, we meet various people who've come to ask favours of the Don on his daughter's wedding day. And we also meet his youngest son, Michael, who's played by Al Pacino, who is a war hero, and his girlfriend, Kay, who's played by Diane Keaton.
Can I just say, as you're going through the synopsis, being a cricket fan, I cannot listen to this and hear the Don without imagining that it's actually Don Bradman.
Yes, yes.
So it would make the movie a lot better, in my
It would
opinion.
be far more entertaining. We're actually recording on the Bradman style's birthday.
Oh,
so
there you go.
he was born today as we record this. Anyway, yes. One of the people who wants the Don's help is Johnny Fontaine. And Johnny Fontaine is a very thinly disguised Frank Sinatra counterpart. He's also the Don's godson, and he's sick of his music career. He wants to upgrade to a movie career. So the Don sends his consigliere, Tom Hagen, his adopted son, lawyer, etc., to Hollywood to help Johnny out. And perhaps a little bit surprisingly, this assistance involves cutting the head off a horse and putting it in a movie producer's bed, which is probably a movie moment of infamy, which is probably at the standard of the Psycho shower scene.
Definitely.
Everyone's heard of this one, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, while all that's going on, the Don is also being asked to bankroll the drug business of the nefarious Saluzzo. And when the Don refuses to bankroll the drug business, he strikes back and he first kills the Don's main enforcer, Luca Brasi, and then he guns down the Don himself. But somehow the Don survives the shooting, the assassination attempt, and he's taken to hospital. But while his eldest son, Sonny, takes over the business and he starts this hot-headed gang war, Michael, meanwhile, saves his father from hospital assassins because the corrupt police remove the Don's protection. The gang war is still escalating, and eventually it goes into overdrive because Michael guns down both Saluzzo and McCluskey, the corrupt police officer, in a cafe, and then he heads off to Sicily. While he's in Sicily, he falls in love with Apollonia, who is a
I don't think it's love.
Well, yes. He is
Sorry to spoil the stars in your eyes there, Dan.
He's very attracted to Apollonia, a local villager, and does manage to marry her so quickly that the black eye from his confrontation with McCluskey is yet to heal. So he's basically still recovering from a black eye, gets to Sicily, meets her, marries her, and they move on. And while all that's going on, we're still back in New York. There's a lot more gang warfare and fighting. Connie's awful husband, who we saw marrying her at the beginning of the movie, Carlo, he starts beating her up, so he's a charmer. Sonny decides that he'll beat the shit out of Carlo, and then Carlo and Connie have another full-on kind of plate-throwing, belt-wielding fight, and this enrages Sonny so much that he storms out of his home and drives off to God only knows do what to Carlo, probably kill Carlo. But before he can get there, he's gunned down at a toll booth because the whole thing was a trap. And that's pretty much enough for the Don, the death of his son. He recovers from his gunshot wounds and calls a meeting of all the families, and he negotiates peace. But not quite in time to save poor old Apollonia, who explodes as the result of a Sicilian car bomb. Anyway,
No avenging Apollonia, though.
No. Michael seems quite okay about his exploding wife.
Yeah.
He's,
we avenge the death of men, not of women.
Yes, definitely not. So he just trots back to America and he hooks back up with Kay, marries her instead, and they have a couple of kids. And we kind of move through a decade's worth of time here as Michael starts taking more and more interest in the family business, and the Don gets older and older. Michael does promise Kay that the family's going to get out of the crime business entirely, and he starts scouting out casinos in Las Vegas. That's where his brother Fredo has been hanging out since back when the gang war began. But for some reason, the plan to buy out the casinos doesn't really work, and then the Don dies of a heart attack while playing with his grandson. And that pretty much triggers the final part of the movie, which is with the Don dead, Michael doesn't feel as if he has to maintain the peace treaty that the Don hammered out. So instead, as he's in the church becoming the godfather of Connie's son, his henchmen simultaneously attack all of the heads of all the other families, as well as Mo Green, the dude who wouldn't sell him the casino. He also gets Tessio, who's someone who betrayed somebody, which I always start to lose track of what's going on in the plot here. Anyway, he kills off everybody who's caused him any trouble, pretty much including Connie's husband, Carlo, who he gets him to confess to his involvement in Sonny's murder and then has him killed as well. And then we have the closing scene of the movie, which is Connie coming to confront Michael about Carlo's murder, and Michael denying that he knows anything about it. He says, "Don't know what you're talking about." Connie gets taken away. Kay also wants to know if Michael had anything to do with the murder, and Michael assures her very straight-faced that he very much did not, nothing to do with me. And Kay allows herself to believe the lie for a moment, but only for a moment, because she's then shut out of the room in which the new Godfather will conduct all his business. And that's the end of the movie.
There you go.
So what did you think of this one?
You know, You actually knew in advance what I would think of this
Yes, I
movie.
did.
This is the very definition of overrated, I reckon, particularly 9.2 on
9.2,
IMDb.
second best movie.
Was there a good film made in the 70s? I'm including Frenzy here.
I'm sure there must. Star Wars was made in the 1970s.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. But you quite like this movie, or you've seen it a few times anyway?
I have, yes. I like this movie. I've probably seen it, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. I always lose track of all the details of the betrayals and all the schemes.
I have no real understanding of the plot. Why does he kill everyone at the end? I don't know that it makes all that much sense.
I think it does make sense, but it's not really logically conveyed in the movie. I think if you dig down, I think like the writers of the movie could explain exactly why he did anything. I'm just not sure it always comes across as clear. You've got to really study it and pay close attention.
Oh, you've got to watch it 4 or 5 times.
Probably,
Or
yeah.
perhaps-
And even then it drifts out of my brain each time.
I think you probably have to be a man.
Maybe, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, all the tactics. He's just consolidating power, and he's the only one brazen enough to just attack everybody all at the same time. I think is the logic behind it all. But it doesn't really bother me the fact that I don't really understand what's going on. There's some kind of hypnotic effect the movie has, and I do know, like, I've watched it multiple times, and even as I got to the end of this one, I'd been sucked in enough that I pretty much wanted to put The Godfather Part 2 on straight away, which you probably were not interested in doing.
I
right?
have no desire to see the sequels. Next time I'm out of the house, you feel free to watch it. I mean, this was the first time I had actually seen it, and I openly hated this movie. I do. First, let me say that I do enjoy some movies that are very blokey, only starring men. For example, The Shawshank Redemption.
Yes,
right.
Yep.
I love that film, and I enjoy many James Bond movies. I even like Alistair McLean. I like war movies. However, this is just a movie that seems to glorify toxic masculinity. It's just built on patriarchy and assumptions that men are better than women the whole way through it, without even a subtle nod to any irony or acknowledgement that they're wrong.
Yep.
And I reckon if you ask any men's right activist, what is your favourite movie, they are immediately shunned from the club if they don't say The Godfather.
The Godfather. Yeah.
And if I dare to mention that I hate The Godfather, someone will inevitably start to mansplain at me why I'm so wrong. Not a question.
Well, that's a challenge for all of you. Log on to our various social media accounts and mansplain to Kat why she's wrong. I could certainly see that perspective. Like it's definitely not. It's glorifying this very male, violent, this very masculine, heavy society. And I mean, I guess what can you do? I mean, from what I can gather, that is what the mafia is.
It does exist.
So
I think men like the idea of taking law into their own hands, don't they? Which is what this whole film's about, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably part of the attraction. This, you don't have to play by the rules. You're a criminal. You're more powerful than the rules. You can do whatever you want if you're smart enough, if you're strong enough, which is kind of the Sonny style, or if you're smart enough, which is more the Michael style. So there's that kind of appeal as well. If you're clever enough, you can take power. If you're strong enough, so there is something very masculine about it all.
And some people really like this style of dynasty kind of movie, right? Like, see, I don't really even love the Game of Thrones style, movies about kings and queens holding power just because of their status. I don't like those either, and I think there's a big element of that in it. So that's another reason why personally I don't like it. Yeah,
I mean, and again, that's one of the things that I do like. I like all the political scheming. I like the plan, even if I don't 100% follow it. It's it's one of the reasons I like Survivor. I like people trying to work out what the other person thinks is going to happen next, and trying to work out how to outmaneuver them.
Yep.
And who's betraying who, and all that kind of stuff.
And predicting a few steps ahead of what's going to happen
so
next.
I kind of like that. I also like that it has a dark ending. I quite like a movie where the hero is on a downward spiral. I don't know why that appeals to me, but it always has, and this one definitely has that as well.
It has got a bad ending, hasn't it? And I guess it can't possibly have a good ending, so that's one satisfying thing about this movie.
Yeah, Michael starts off as this idealist who, he clearly states, "I am not my family. Don't judge me by their behaviour," and eventually he becomes like the family is him.
And he's at the start. He's literally on the outside. He's out in the sunshine with the wedding, and he's not in the inner sanctum with all the horrible people who are making deals over other people's lives in the dark. And he starts in the sun and he ends up right back in there. So that's very kind of obvious, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, I was generally just bored by this movie with the stereotypes of men and the stereotypes of women that just aren't true.
Yeah.
But and it did frankly just bore me by the end of it because I mean it is long too.
It is long, yeah. It's almost 3 hours long, this one. The Godfather Part 2 is longer. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess the people who didn't like the first one are not to be considered in the second one because they're not going to watch it.
Definitely.
What other interesting facts do you have about this movie and how it was produced or directed?
Yeah, well, we've got a couple of interesting facts. So I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. That was voted the second most memorable line in cinema history by the American Film Institute. Do you want to have a guess what the number one was? It's not from The Shawshank Redemption. It's frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. We also do have the fact of Brando, as we mentioned, did not accept the Best Actor Oscar. He sent American Indian rights activist Sachin Littlefeather in his place to announce at the awards that Brando was not going to accept the award because he objected to the depiction of American Indians by Hollywood and television. So there we go.
How interesting that they allowed someone else to go up and make that statement.
Yeah, I don't really know much about it, but it's the kind of I was going to say it's the kind of thing that wouldn't happen now, but in the most recent Oscars, as we record this, a man got up and punched another one in the face for making a joke. So
perhaps times were brighter back then.
Perhaps, yes. Anyway, the making of the movie, there are multiple books about how complicated this movie was to make. So Coppola tried to get the movie made, and
wasn't he talked into it?
He wasn't particularly interested in first. The novel was a smash hit, it was bestseller, but it was widely considered pretty trashy. And he thought, no, I don't want to make a movie out of this trash. Mm-hmm. And then he got together with Puzo, and I'm not quite sure at what point he decided that he was going to try and make this kind of mythic dynasty story out of it, but he did. No,
he needed the money.
Yes, he definitely needed the money, yeah.
I think everyone needed the money in this movie, right?
Yeah.
The author of the book did it for money, the director did it for money.
Yep. And Paramount did not like Coppola almost from the beginning because he was being a typical 70s director. It took too long to screen test people. He was choosing actors that weren't famous enough, such as Al Pacino, who was just like this theatre actor. He's just like, we don't want him. We want a star. We want a Robert Redford or whatever.
Yeah, imagine Robert Redford as an Italian.
Yes. He also wanted to shoot it set in the 1940s and 50s, whereas Paramount said, no, let's make it a current day, 1970s version. And somehow he just managed to dig his heels in on all these things. And despite how shitty they got with him, he got his way on pretty much everything. And I think that's mostly because he and Puzo convinced Brando to come on board. And Brando won over Paramount with this kind of...
He was a sufficiently famous name, right?
Yes, but he also had a reputation as being, a bit of a prima donna. But they loved his screen test, which was kind of this impromptu thing that was shot at his house. But once they brought into the idea of Brando as Don Corleone, Brando basically threatened to quit if Coppola was fired, which gave him pretty much all the leverage he needed. The filming was very chaotic, and he was pretty much on the brink of being fired the entire time.
He was rewriting bits of the screenplay, which I really love that as he went along, which is very Hitchcock.
Yes. But it was, as we mentioned, it was a massive commercial and critical hit. So they pretty much left him alone when he came to The Godfather Part 2. So, So a very, very successful movie and made his career.
Made him famous.
Yep.
And we have some lines, as you mentioned, some historic lines in this movie. The Michael saying, "My father made him an offer he couldn't refuse."
Yes, and Kay said, "What was that?"
And then he says, Luca Brasi held a gun to his head and my father assured him that either his brains or his signature would be on the contract. I think that second line is a better line, actually.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Yeah. We've got Sonny said received a fish wrapped in a bulletproof vest, and he goes, "What the hell is this?" And Clemenza explains it to him.
Yeah, it's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
Yes. And then as the Don is negotiating peace, he says, I'm a superstitious man, and if some unlucky accident should befall him, referring to Michael, if he should be shot in the head by a police officer, or if he should hang himself in his jail cell, or if he's struck by a bolt of lightning, then I'm going to blame some of the people in this room, and that I do not forgive. And one more quote at the end. We got Michael saying, my father is no different than any powerful man, any man with power, like a president or senator. To which Kay replies,
Oh, do you know how naive you sound, Michael? Presidents and senators don't have men killed.
Michael says, oh, who's being naive, Kay?
Yes. And I think Michael, he would have been on a path to becoming a senator, right?
Well, in one of the scenes at the end, basically the Don was saying, I wanted you to become a senator. I wanted to become legit in time that you didn't get involved in the business. You would be the legitimate face, but he ran out of time.
Well, and if you don't have enough sons, eventually the older ones all get killed and you've got to have more kids, basically, if you want one of them to become a senator.
Yes.
And what about the Bechdel test here?
Does it pass?
No.
I think there are 2 named women in it.
Is it?
They may briefly call there's Kay. Well, I guess there's 3 because there's Apollonia and there's also Connie. But none of them talk to each other. Or if they do, it's not about anything other than men doing manly things. Technology. How could modern technology impact, improve or change the plot?
Well, presumably crime dynasty families these days are just doing identity theft, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think there's lots of more modern crimes you can move into. You could send those, Nigerian prince spam emails out. I'd like to see Sonny working on that, typing away, sending off there. NFTs, I'm not sure they're technically illegal, but probably should be.
Yeah.
So, I think, the family will be moving into all of those things. I also like the idea that instead of a car bomb, that maybe Apollonia is trying to drive a Tesla and it just electrocutes her.
Oh, yes.
And we never really know whether that was, an assassination or whether it's just a faulty Tesla.
One of those problems.
Yep.
Yeah, could be. So now there must be a lot of tributes and remakes and so on to this movie, right?
As you mentioned, it's pretty much every piece of pop culture since the movie came out 50 years ago.
Is there a Simpsons episode that doesn't reference The Godfather?
I'm not sure. I do have in my notes here that there's probably be about 1,000 Simpsons jokes referring to The Godfather, and probably the only movie or director who surpasses it would be Hitchcock himself.
Yep.
The Hitchcock movies may surpass The Godfather, but that'd be about it. There were, of course, as we mentioned, 2 sequels, The Godfather Part 2, which was the first major film to have a numbered sequel. So we might have had, the James Bondses were all part of a ongoing thing, but they weren't numbered
their
sequels.
Own names, yeah.
And then eventually The Godfather Part 3. And there's also very recently a very terrible TV series called The Offer, which was about the making of The Godfather, which I watched while I was locked up with COVID, and it's a terrible.
Oh my God!
It's very over the top and cheesy, and it's kind of hilariously bad. It's very, very funny, and pretty much every mafia movie.
There were quite a few after this. I find that remarkable. They're still making this.
Yeah, so
you would have thought that they'd exhausted the genre well before The Godfather, right? Because there were a lot of gangster movies and that kind of thing.
Well, I think that was one of the reasons why The Godfather was a hit, because it was probably the first one who didn't have them as like these cardboard cutout villains who just run around bang bang shooting people. And
was that not The Godfather?
And but so showed the behind the scenes and how they work and all that kind of stuff. But perhaps most famously, in the wake of The Godfather, we had Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas, which I'm sure you're keen to watch as well.
Oh, can't wait.
And once you're done with that, you can settle in for like 7 seasons or whatever of The Sopranos as well.
Oh my goodness. I think I've only just realised that The Godfather is really, is it just named after the fact that Michael becomes a godfather at the very end?
It kind of bookends it, because the Don is the godfather of at the beginning of Johnny Fontaine. So he's treating his godsons with giving them special treatment, and Michael becomes the godfather at the end. So it's a bookending thing, yeah. All right, let's go through the Hitchcock movie checklist. How much Hitchcock is in The Godfather? Do we have a MacGuffin?
I guess. No, I don't know. I don't think there is anything as subtle as a MacGuffin.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The only thing I could think of is the drug business, because the Don's refusal to get involved triggers much of the action. The other families want to get involved in it.
And it could have been anything.
Pretty much could have been anything. So maybe the drug business.
Yeah,
maybe. I'm not convinced. That's hovering between a MacGuffin and a plot element, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
The cameo. Do we have a cameo from Francis
We don't have a
Ford
cameo from the director himself, but apparently there were some other Coppolas in the movie.
There
right?
were, yeah. There were lots of his relatives, sisters, brothers. Well, Talia Shire is of course his sister, so she played Connie. But perhaps most famously, future Best Director nominee Sofia Coppola. She was the baby who was being baptized at the end of the movie. So we had a lot of extras Coppolas.
And a lot of real people rather than extras too, right? In the movie there were some crowd scenes.
Yes.
Significant crowd scenes. Anyone who knew the director or any of the actors, I think, had the chance to be in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, especially at that wedding at the beginning, it's just like, come along, we're having a party. You can dance and sing and frolic in front of cameras.
Yeah.
Do we have a mother character?
Well, we do have Mother Corleone. Did she have a name? I'm not sure.
I don't think she did. No, I think she's just known as Mama Corleone. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm not sure that it was a real person. It might have been a cardboard cutout.
It could have been, yes.
It could have been.
Yes. We do have Kay and Connie. They become mothers during the course of the movie, but they're not really Hitchcockian style mothers. So.
There's quite a lot in this movie of just babies crying on women's hips, more so than you would normally have. Normally, babies in movies are quite silent. I found that was quite startling. I thought it was unusual.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's just feeding into the women are useless at everything, and they bring up children, but they're not even very good at that.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows? What about? Well, I think there were a lot of birds and animals, right? Going back to the Hitchcock checklist.
Yes, in the very opening scene, we've got the Don who's has the cat on his lap,
Signalling that he must be a criminal.
Yeah, I mean, he's gone full Blofeld in that situation, right? He's and apparently the cat was just a stray that was hanging around the movie set, and Brando thought, I like this cat. So he picked it up and added it to the scene and just patted him and played with him. Brando was apparently a cat lover, so he had cats of his own, and he liked this one and picked it up, chucked it in the scene. The cat apparently was purring so loudly that it overpowered some of Brando's lines, and he had to go back in and record them later.
Goodness me.
I mean, that's probably not hard given how mumbly Brando was in the movie. But
yeah, very much so.
And we also do have the racehorse in the movie, with and without the attached body.
I can't remember seeing it when it was attached.
Yeah, we had a brief scene where the movie producer said, this is my glorious racehorse who I love and I'm going to put out to stud and make zillions of dollars. Said, fine.
Yes, indeed.
Lead character at a standstill or on the run?
Yeah, well, I mean, Michael is definitely on the run after he kills a corrupt policeman, and he flees to Sicily.
And he's kind of at a standstill as well. Once he's in Sicily, he's kind of trapped there until the gang war ends and it's safe for him to come back home.
Yeah.
So he kills some time by marrying a random woman he bumps into.
Yeah.
Characters with elements of good and bad.
No, they're all bad.
They're all bad. Well, yeah. I mean, the whole movie is about the descent of Michael, right? So he starts off perhaps wanting to be good, wanting to be better than his family, but he does not succeed. By the end of the movie, he's just lying directly to Kay's face about his role as a criminal mastermind.
Exactly. And of course, Kay is the only smart young woman in it, but not quite smart enough to just go off and find someone else while... But, I mean, I guess Michael was only gone for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. I mean, he's only just recovered from his black eye.
Did he still have the black eye when he came back?
When he came back. It would have been funny if he did. We do have some bumbling cops, but they're kind of deliberately bumbling. They fail to protect the Don while he's in the hospital, but that's only because they're very corrupt. So professionally bumbling cops is a new subcategory, I think, of bumbling cops.
I guess the cops don't really feature because we don't need the law when we take the law into our own hands, more or less.
We do have a staircase. The Don gets carried up a staircase when he returns from the hospital, kind of noticeably. In his bed, he just gets lugged up staircase. There's probably other ones, but that's one that spoke to me. Yeah,
what other tropes have you got? There must be a lot in this movie that are classics.
You go to tvtropes.org and you usually for a particular movie it's got a list of all the tropes. This one had to be categorized into 3 separate sections, A to H, I to whatever. Anyway, I only chose some of the bigger ones. Atrocity montage, all the murders at the end. Bodyguard betrayal, there's a few of those.
Oh yes.
Conspicuously public assassination, again a few of those.
Yep.
The Don gets shot down, the cops get shot down. Evil parents want good kids.
Well, everyone wants that, don't they?
Very much so. So yeah, the Don wanted Michael to be more. No celebrities were harmed. This was one I quite like. So this refers to the various real life celebrities who some of the characters were supposedly based on.
Oh, so like Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra, yeah. And there were various casino owners who were thinly veiled real life people.
No one actually named.
Other shady characters, yes. The one that's kind of takes its name from this particular movie, An Offer You Can't Refuse.
Yep.
The Pirates Who Don't Do Anything is another good one.
What on earth is that?
So the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything is the fact that we never actually see any of the criminal activities on screen. So they talk a lot about all the crimes that they do, but we don't. I mean, we see them murdering
murders.
one another more or less.
Yep.
But you don't see them, running corrupt gambling things or dealing drugs or
No.
any of the other bribes or anything. We just So the Pirates do anything. So
No, that's right. And I actually don't even know how they make all their money and what their business is.
Yep. Repeated rehearsal failure. So in the opening scene, we've got Luca Brasi coming in to thank the Don for inviting him to his wedding, and he's repeating what he's going to say over and over, and then he comes in and stumbles the line anyway.
Yeah, right.
And apparently this was a genuine mistake made by the actor, because he wasn't really an actor. He was basically hired because he was a big brute of a person, so he's basically a wrestler or something.
Okay,
And
yeah.
he was so nervous about working with Brando that he came in and flooded the line, and they just kept it. And then presumably went back and shot him rehearsing it beforehand.
Oh, yeah, good.
So it's very funny.
That's great.
All right, so let's move on to the purpose of talking about The Godfather, which is comparing it to Frenzy.
Yes. Now, I mean, could Frenzy have won any Oscars? We know that Hitchcock never really did, but were there any ways in which Frenzy was better than the particular gongs that The Godfather got? So the first one was Best Actor, and Marlon Brando won.
Yep. Marlon Brando, but before we go on, Marlon Brando won, and then a couple of years later, Robert De Niro also won Best Actor, and he portrayed the younger version of Don Corleone, or Don Vito Corleone. And for decades, this was the only ever example of two actors winning Best Actor for the same role.
Right.
And then just in the most recent years, Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix both won for the Joker, for portraying the Joker.
Right.
So there you go. So now there's two roles. You've had double Best Actor. Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So what could we do? Could we put Marlon Brando in Frenzy and then he can win Best Actor there?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's how you get a bit of Oscar buzz into Frenzy. So I was trying to work out would he have a good role as the police inspector, just mumbling away?
Probably better than the criminal lead.
Yeah. I don't think you want him as the criminal lead. I think he's too old by that stage. I think he's better. The other alternative I thought he could could be the owner of the bar where Babs was working.
But then he would have got Best Supporting Actor, right?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Could he get Best Actor as the police inspector, beef up his role a bit? Probably.
Yeah, probably, yeah. I think so. Speaking of Best Supporting Actors, we had 3 nominations for The Godfather. So we had Al Pacino.
Son 1, Son 2, Son 3.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Al Pacino, who I'm not sure was a supporting actor. I'm pretty sure he was the main character.
He was the main character.
Anyway, he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, presumably so he didn't have to go up against Brando.
Yeah.
Robert Duvall, who played Tom Hagen, the adopted brother, and James Caan, who played Sonny. They were all nominated.
They didn't win.
None of them won, no. So
any one of them could have been in Frenzy.
I think so,
any one of the characters put a jacket with leather elbow patches on them and they would have done quite well.
Yeah, I think you take 2 of them. I think one of them could have been Richard on the run, and one of them could have been the necktie killer.
I had trouble telling them apart during The Godfather. So they could have still been they could have done any of those roles, I think.
Yeah, I think Pacino would have made a good necktie killer. He's got the murderous intensity. You could see him just glowering and doing something horrible and then not seemingly caring. He's got the sociopathic glare, yeah. And I can easily see James Caan, who played Sonny. He could have easily been the dim-witted Richard. I think he's running around complaining about the fact he's got no money and he's just a useless idiot.
Yep.
So I think those two get in there. Maybe that gives Frenzy a bit more Oscar potential.
Yeah, I think so.
What other Oscar was won by The Godfather?
So they won Best Screenplay, right?
Yes,
Best
adapted
screenplay.
Yeah.
Adapted from the book, of course. So, and this is a good occasion where the author of the book gets a bit of a gong here because he also did the screenplay, and they won this. So do you think we could have had the mob involved in London society somehow? Could we set the film there?
I guess so. I mean, London must have had a criminal underworld. There were kind of famous criminals at the time in London. So I think maybe the necktie killer is not so much a serial killer operating on his own. Maybe he's just a mob hitman. Maybe he just kills random people on the side, a side hustle.
To keep him in practice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He could have kept the necktie killing as his trademark.
Yep. And vice versa. We could have had The Godfather using neckties.
Yes. Yeah, well, there were a lot of stranglings in The Godfather,
There
right?
certainly were.
Yeah, use your necktie. Don't have like this piece of wire to garrote people with. Yeah, get
Yep.
some necktie stuff.
There were a couple of other parallels too, right? There were the food parallels. There was quite a bit of eating in The Godfather.
There was indeed.
Or cooking.
Cooking, lots of cooking, yeah. So
Yep.
when the family go to the mattresses, one of the hitmen show the rest how he makes pasta for lots of people. And apparently this has got, like, people have tried this recipe and they say, yep, that's a pretty good recipe, actually.
This is just such a terrible cliche, isn't it? Oh, Italian people make pasta. Honestly, it's
Yep.
so terrible. This should have been disqualified from the Oscars just based on that.
I think it was like a Coppola family recipe, though. So. Anyway, I think, but yeah, it would have been good if we had Mrs. Oxford there preparing the food. Imagine that would have been good. She could have taken the fish that shows up and, made a meal out of that for sure. Sleeps with the fishes, free fish here.
Free
Let's
fish.
make a meal out of this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, were there any Oscar gongs for the women in this movie?
No nominations in either the Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah, not even for playing dead.
No, not even for playing dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, not for The Godfather, not for Frenzy, neither of them. Yeah, so they might have got some had they been a little bit less cavalier about killing their female characters in the case of Frenzy, or just sidelining them completely in the case of The Godfather.
Indeed. What would you prefer? Would you prefer to be a dead female character or a completely ignored female character?
Well, at least I guess if you're murdered, you get one good scene and then you're free to go on to the next movie.
Yeah, one good scream.
Yeah, so maybe that's an area where Frenzy's ahead of The Godfather. If you're a female actor, you can just get in there, get killed, move on to your next movie.
I mean, I must acknowledge, The Godfather's probably is more worthy of the best picture than Frenzy.
Yeah, I think so.
I still prefer Frenzy.
Yes. Well, you may also prefer, I mean, The Godfather did win Best Picture, but it did not win the most awards at that year's Oscars. The movie that won the most awards was Cabaret. Life is a Cabaret. And I'd have loved to have seen Frenzy throw in a few musical numbers, pick up some cabaret action, get some Oscar buzz from that. Liza Minnelli dancing and singing up a storm while the necktie killer is, trying to get to her. She can't catch her because she's dancing and singing. Yeah.
Well, Liza Minnelli used to wear quite a few bows and things around her neck. She could have easily been the necktie killer.
Yep.
Maybe that would have been a good crossover or a good sequel.
Yeah, there you go. So Frenzy, take some tips from Cabaret.
Yes.
So there we go. That's Frenzy v The Godfather, and I think we've decided The Godfather wins, even though you don't particularly like either movie that much.
No.
You like Frenzy more on the second watch, right?
I definitely liked and The Godfather's not getting a second watch.
Yeah, that's true.
So tell us the next movie. We had a cryptic clue for it. Tell us the cryptic clue again, and I will unpack that for you.
Okay, so the cryptic clue was an early Hitchcock film. That's 3 gold pieces. It's a two-word movie, 3 letters and 6 letters.
So every cryptic clue has 2 elements, right? It has the clue, like a normal crossword, and then it has the wordplay.
Yep.
So ideally these combine to make a reasonable sentence, like an early Hitchcock film, that's 3 gold pieces. So the clue here, the actual clue, is an early Hitchcock film.
Yes.
And you can get the answer just from this. So people think the cryptic crosswords are harder than normal crosswords. They're actually easy.
Yeah, you got 2 clues.
You got 2 clues. You got the normal one. So either end is always the regular clue. Now the rest is the wordplay. Pieces is an indicator of an anagram.
Yes.
And the 2 previous words, 3 gold, adds up to 9 letters. So that's an anagram. And movies often start with the word the.
Yep.
So the something, leaving the letters golden, Golden.
Or Golder.
Sorry, Golder. Golder. And rearranging these is lodger.
So that will be our next movie. We will be re-watching The Lodger, which is from 1927. You originally ranked this one your 34th favourite Hitchcock movie. I originally ranked it 36th. So if it's going to make the top 20 for either of us on a rewatch, that'll be interesting to see.
Will be.
So we will let you know next month after we re-watch that. So if you do have any questions or feedback on The Lodger, feel free to email them in at feedback@hitchpodonline.com, and we will answer as many questions as we can in our next episode.
And are we going to read this book?
Well, we are, because unlike the book that was the inspiration for Frenzy, this one is available.
print?
Yeah, it's very much in print because it's out of copyright. So
Wow.
you can download it for free. It's called
fantastic.
The Lodger by Marie Bullock-Lowndes. You can get it on both Project Gutenberg and standardebooks.com. We'll put the links in the show notes. And so we will be reading the book. We'll also be doing a little bit of a book club thing over on our Patreon. And we will see you next time.
See you then. Thank you for listening to HitchPod. Please come and talk to us on Twitter at HitchPod Tweets or on Facebook by searching for HitchPod. And you can also email us directly at feedback@hitchpodonline.com. And if you want more Hitchcock content, please consider becoming a HitchPod supporter. Just go to patreon.com/HitchPod. And for as little as $2 a month, you can get access to our Season 1 coverage of every single Hitchcock movie, as well as bonus episodes on Hitchcock-esque movies. Invitations also to watch live rewatches and much, much more. This is HitchPod, a podcast counting down the 20 best movies of the wonderful 20th century director Alfred Hitchcock. I'm Kat Jones and I'm here with Dan Lickby. Dan, I'm here with someone.
Let's go again.
Do we just start from the top
Yeah.
I'm going to be giggling too much. This is HitchPod, a podcast counting... Oh, no. You might have to do the intro.
No, you got it. Third take.